What is up, my beautiful gemstones? Welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, just welcome. My name is Gemma Jade, but today we are going to be discussing the case of Lauren Dunne-Astley. Lauren Dunne-Astley's story is tragic, heartbreaking, traumatic, and I really wasn't sure if I wanted to discuss this again. This is a reboot of one of the first videos that I covered here, one of the first true crime cases. I think it's important to keep sharing the story of what happened to Lauren. Her case on Dateline was called Loved to Death, and she was the victim of dating/breakup violence, which is something that is very close and near and dear to my heart. So I really wanted to push her case out there again now that I'm more comfortable in front of the camera and more articulate in bringing these stories to you all. So let's just jump right in. Lauren Dunne-Astley was born on April 1st, 1993 in Boston, Massachusetts. She was an Aries. Her parents' names were Mary and Malcolm. Lauren was the only child, and she was the absolute love of her parents' lives. She grew up in Wayland, Massachusetts. Her parents were both educators, and they divorced in 2006, but shared custody of her. Lauren discovered a love and talent for music and performing at a very early age. At the age of 12, she got the lead in a community theater production of Annie. She was a natural, and she loved the spotlight. The spotlight loved her too. Lauren only stood at 5 feet tall, but according to everyone who knew her, she had a giant personality. She was very talented at soccer and tennis, played the French horn, and had performed with the Metro West New Symphony Orchestra for several years. She also had an incredible singing voice. She was the lead singer in her high school's a cappella group. Her loved ones described Lauren as vibrant and full of life, an incredibly honest young woman with a huge heart who wasn't afraid to stand up for what she believed in and was always willing to go the extra mile to help someone. Whenever I see pictures of Lauren myself, I just can't help but smile. She was beautiful both on the inside and out, and an exceptional young woman with a bright future ahead of her. Lauren went 3 times to New Orleans to help flood victims get back on their feet after the devastation and disaster of Hurricane Katrina. Her parents stated that the good, hard manual labor was very good for and meaningful to her. Lauren eventually started dating her first serious boyfriend, a fellow classmate named Nathaniel Fujita. They each were each other's first loves, first serious relationship. When describing Nathaniel, his and Lauren's friends said that he was really quiet, he didn't say much, and he was also, quote, a good friend and a kind person at heart, end quote. Nathaniel, or Nate as he was mostly called, was a star wide receiver for the Wayland High School football team. He was the oldest child to his parents, Beth and Tomo Fujita. Tomo is a musician, a well-known guitarist whose music you can actually find on YouTube, and he was also a professor at the Berklee College of Music in Boston, Massachusetts. The families became pretty close while Lauren and Nate were dating, and each family thought the other kid was good for their child. It was a good fit, or at least that's what everyone thought at first. Nate and Lauren spent a lot of time together, mostly hanging out with their friends or hanging out at Nathaniel's house. The two dated for about 3 years, with the first 2 being described as seemingly ideal. But the third and final year was when it all became like a crazy, roaring roller coaster ride. I couldn't find specific information or details as to what changed in that last year, but Lauren would complain to friends one night that Nate was boring and on his phone the entire time they were hanging out. And then the very next night, she would gush about how cute and sweet he was being towards her. Lauren's mother explained in an interview that she noticed the couple started chronically getting into fights and breaking up just to almost immediately get back together again on a constant basis all the time around this time. In the spring of their senior year, on her 18th birthday in April, Lauren broke the relationship off with Nate for good. She was looking forward to college and getting to meet so many new people and experience so many new things. She felt relieved with the breakup, according to friends and family. Nathaniel, however, did not see the breakup the same way. He was extremely sad and felt a real sense of loss when Lauren broke up with him and couldn't seem to move past it or even really accept that it was really happening. He could not accept that they weren't together anymore. He also couldn't seem to accept that they were actually done and broken up for good this time, and that they would more than likely never be getting back together. Nathaniel wasn't even excited about being accepted to play football for Trinity come the next fall, which was a childhood dream of his that had come true. His uncle said, quote, "He just wasn't the same kid, not to get excited about football," end quote. To celebrate graduation, Lauren and two of her best friends, Chloe and Hannah, decided to throw a big party. About 150 classmates showed up, and all of them were having a great time. They were dancing and celebrating underneath this huge tent. I guess because of the harassment and anger Nate had been displaying towards Lauren in the previous months leading up to the party after she broke up with him, she decided she didn't want to talk to Nate at all that night, even though he was there at the party too. Her friend said Nate went up to Lauren at the party while he was seemingly drunk, and he started an argument with her. They recalled how upset Lauren got and how she was just pleading with Nate to just get and stay away from her and leave her alone. Lauren's mother also had a memory of that night of Lauren coming up to her and crying, saying that Nate was harassing her. He wouldn't leave her alone, and he didn't want her dancing with anyone else. He was trying to, pull her away from anyone she was trying to dance with. When Lauren kept telling Nate to leave her alone and get away from her, he got extremely angry, and he went over and punched one of the poles that was holding the tent up, causing it to partially collapse on top of some of the partygoers, and then they had to try and hold it up. At that point, Nate was asked by Lauren's parents to leave the party. Lauren's father said, quote, "He had to be picked up, and I think feeling like the world was against him at that time," end quote. In the weeks leading up to Lauren's murder, everyone noticed a huge change in Nate. He never wanted to leave his house anymore and was drinking and smoking a lot of pot and smoking it daily. He wasn't hanging out with any of his friends anymore either. His mother, Beth, was really worried about him, and she took him to see a psychiatrist. I have no idea really the intimate details, but I do know, and we'll discuss it later, that he did get a diagnosis and he was supposed to be taking medication. Lauren continued to worry about Nate and asked friends if they thought she should go and talk to him or go see him because she wanted to try and help in some way. She still loved him and cared about him. That was her first love. They all have the same friends, she still had love for him. She just couldn't do the relationship thing with him anymore. She didn't want to see him hurt. She just couldn't continue with the relationship. Her friends did advise her against going to see Nate due to his bizarre and aggressive behavior towards her, and also, I'm sure, because of the anger he had displayed at the graduation party that was aimed directly at Lauren. However, when Beth, Nate's mother, went to see Lauren at her job and expressed her concerns, she asked Lauren to please go and see him and talk to him, and Lauren couldn't refuse. Beth had been like a second mother to her for their entire relationship for at least the 3 years. She decided she was going to go and meet with Nate. And that's exactly what she did after her shift ended at the clothing store she worked at in the mall on the night of July 3rd, 2011. There's a surveillance video from the mall that circulated that was of Lauren talking on her phone as she was leaving work, and it was later found that she was in fact speaking to Nate. This happened around 6:45 p.m. right after she left, but she had seemed calm in the video and she didn't seem to be upset or under any sort of duress or pressure. Lauren did not tell anyone about her plans to go and see Nate that night, and this surveillance footage is the last time anyone would ever see Lauren alive. At 7:05 p.m. on the night of July 3rd, 2011, Lauren's phone sent her very last text message. It was sent to Nathaniel Fujita and contained one word, quote, "Here," end quote. At about dawn on July 4th, 2011, Lauren had been missing for about 12 hours. Everyone knew she was missing, and her family had already called the police at that point. At just about daybreak, Lauren's body was found in a marsh in a nearby area. She had been strangled and her throat had been cut. She had a bungee cord tangled up in her hair. Dunne-Astley, her father, had to do the unthinkable. He had to go and identify his one and only child, his daughter's body, at the medical examiner's office. He said about the experience, quote, "I was hoping up until the last moment that it was not her, even when we went to the medical examiner's office," end quote. Lauren's mother remembers screaming, quote, "Please don't let it be Nate," end quote. Investigators interviewed family and friends, and obviously they wanted to speak to Nathaniel Fujita. They learned that on the previous night, Nate had been home alone. They went to the Fujita home, and Tomo Fujita, Nate's father, answered the door and informed the investigators that his son wasn't home, that he didn't know where he was, and that he was actually concerned that his son was missing. Investigators immediately went and got a warrant to search the Fujita home. They started their search of the residence in the garage, where they saw a stain that looked like and later tested positive for blood. They also discovered additional blood evidence, bungee cords that looked exactly the same as the one that had been tangled in Lauren's hair, and in the basement of the home, a black gym bag. Inside the gym bag was a soaking wet pair of sneakers that were covered in mud. When they searched Nathaniel's bedroom, that's when everything came together. In a crawl space in his bedroom, the police found sneakers that appeared to have blood all over them, bloody clothing, and everything was soaking wet and covered in mud, keeping in mind here that Lauren's body was found in a muddy, wet marsh. This is when they decided to issue a warrant for the arrest of Nathaniel Fujita. They ended up tracking him down at his cousin's house, and when they told him why they were there and that he was under arrest, Nathaniel was completely silent. He had nothing to say. It was now the early morning hours of July 5th, and Nathaniel Fujita was arrested and charged with the murder of Lauren Dunne-Astley. About the arrest, Nate's uncle said, quote, "It was incomprehensible. It was like an alternate reality," end quote. Here is a timeline the prosecutors put together based on all of the evidence they had uncovered at that point. And in case I forgot to mention it already, the blood found in the garage and on Nate's clothes did turn out to be Lauren's blood, and the bungee cords were an exact match. They had come from his home. Nathaniel was home alone when Lauren showed up a few minutes after 7 p.m. on July 3rd. He savagely and brutally murdered her in his parents' garage. Then he drove her red Jeep about a quarter mile to the town beach parking lot, dumped her keys in a storm drain, and then ran back to his house. He went back in the garage and put Lauren's lifeless body into his own car and drove only 5 miles to a secluded marsh area. He took her body out of the car and went about 30 feet into the water, and he then tried to conceal her body in the thick vegetation that was in the water. Then he headed back home. A witness saw him driving on a street coming back from the marsh going to his house and said, quote, "His music was blaring and his shirt was off. He looked like he was on a mission. Deliberate and purposeful driving home," end quote. When he got back home, Nate tried to clean the crime scene and hide the evidence. Quote, "It all took less than an hour," end quote, prosecutors said. The prosecution in this case sums up a very simple theory as to why Nate killed Lauren. Quote, "He was upset his girlfriend broke up with him, so he killed her." End quote. By all accounts, there was no physical abuse or stalking behavior going on during the couple's 3-year relationship. However, some of their friends did say that they saw some behaviors they considered to be a bit troubling. They said Nate didn't ever want Lauren talking to or spending too much time with anyone else, especially males, and he would also constantly look through her phone all the time as though he were suspicious of her having done something behind his back. Lauren's best friend Chloe later said, quote, "I believe he loved her. He was obsessed with her," end quote. As authorities started gathering more information leading up to the trial, they started to believe that she was a victim of something called dating violence. It's a disturbing trend, and it's happening more and more in the relationships and breakups of young people. I don't think it's something that's brand new, this dating violence, and I don't think it's happening more now, so to speak. I just feel like there's more attention being called to it because of the world we live in now and the world we lived in when this happened in 2011. Now people are aware of what's always been going on in these really intense, dramatic, overly emotional relationships of high schoolers and young people in general. Prosecutors explained, quote, "A relationship ends and what happens is a surge of uncontrollable anger. It can be verbal and or physical, and in the case of Lauren Astley, it ended in death," end quote. As someone who has dealt with this in my very first relationship in high school, I understand completely how complicated it is, because when you're in high school, you're not expecting your first love to kill you or even really physically harm you. And even if they are physically harming you, more than likely your initial reaction is going to be to hide it, because you're not educated in these things. You don't have the life experience to understand that when someone hits you, they're going to hit you again, and all of these statistics, and you just don't have the life experience, and you don't have the love experience, right? The romantic love experience. So it's complicated and it's hard. I was never taught about dating violence, but apparently it's so much more common than anyone could ever imagine. Lauren's mother stated that she had never heard it either. According to the American Psychological Association, 1 in 3 young adults and teens are the victims of physical, emotional, verbal, and/or sexual abuse by a dating partner. Of teenagers that are in an abusive relationship, 3% will tell an authority figure, 6% will tell a family member, but 79% said that they would tell a friend. Mary Dunne explained that while now she realizes that she did see some signs that her daughter and Nate were in a toxic relationship, they weren't blaring. They were, quote, very, very soft, end quote. She stated that she just kind of chalked it up to teenage behavior. Her mother explained that the fact that Lauren's best friends didn't like him and how much time she spent at his house compared to how much time they spent at Lauren's house, those things now, in retrospect, cause her some concern. Quote, and the number of times she tried to break up with him and he wouldn't allow it, I think that is another red flag, end quote. She stated in an interview with Dateline, the one called Love to Death, where I got a lot of this information. According to Nate's family, there was something going on with him. He had reported to his psychiatrist that his mood was 1 out of 10, with, I assume, 10 being the best and with 1 being the lowest he could possibly feel. Let's talk about the trial, which started on February 13th, 2013, a year and a half after the murder. Nathaniel Fujita did stand trial for Lauren's murder, and the prosecutor said he believed that the incident with Nate punching the event tent pole at the graduation party was a sort of precursor to the murder. Quote, this is a domestic violence murder. This was perpetrated because of the relationship, which was a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship, end quote, he stated in court. However, the defense disagreed with that statement. They did not believe that this was a cut and dry domestic violence murder. They wanted the jury to focus on Nate's behavior after graduation and leading up to Lauren's murder. The psychiatrist his mother took him to see diagnosed him with, quote, major clinical depression, end quote, and Nate refused to take the medication. His attorney stated that he had, quote, major mental illness, end quote. His attorney said, quote, this isn't just feeling down, but this was a major depressive episode, end quote. Lauren's best friend Chloe said that Lauren was worried that Nate was going to hurt himself. She never imagined that he would really hurt her. Quote, at the time of the killing, Nathaniel's attorney says, Nathaniel lapsed into a temporary psychotic episode that prevented him from controlling his actions or comprehending what he was doing, end quote. The defense was that Nathaniel was not criminally responsible at the time of the incident because of this major mental illness. Quote, the defense I would ask you to consider is one of lack of criminal responsibility, end quote. Essentially the insanity defense. Nate's attorney, Bill Sullivan, called an expert psychiatrist who had evaluated Nate after Lauren's murder for the defense, and his name was Wade Myers. When asked what Nathaniel had told him happened when Lauren arrived at the house, Nathaniel allegedly told him that they began walking towards the garage to talk, and he had grabbed a bungee cord and put it around her neck and began strangling her. He said he wasn't controlling himself, but it was his body acting while his mind was disconnected from itself. Dr. Myers testified again to what Nathaniel had described to him about slitting Lauren's throat, and he testified, quote, again describing not being in control of what he was doing, no emotional connection to what was happening, end quote. So I don't want to get too much more graphic, guys, and I feel like you probably get the picture by now. I could go on and on and on with the trial, but I want to focus on one more moment. A beautiful moment that happened in the courtroom right after the verdict was read, which was Nathaniel Fujita being sentenced to life in prison with no parole. He was found guilty of murder in the first degree with deliberate premeditation and extreme atrocity or cruelty. So I watched this Dateline interview as part of my research for this video, and I watched it when I rebooted it a couple years ago, and I watched it again now, and I cried more and more every single time when I saw this happen. They had video of it, and it's everything I always talk about at the end of my videos in my live streams, and I need you guys to understand this moment. Lauren's father, Malcolm Astley, walks across the courtroom and hugged Nathaniel's parents. He later said, quote, trying to hold people responsible for situations that are murky and we don't understand very well, and trying to sort out the matter of mental health and how it applies in this case, end quote. When asked about why he did that, why he hugged the parents of the person who murdered his only daughter, he said, quote, I was mainly sharing grief and wishing comfort to them in the ongoing horror that they face. They are facing ongoing, equivalent to torture for their son for the rest of their lives, end quote. In response, Nate's uncle said of this amazing gesture of grace and compassion for this grieving father, quote, "He is perhaps the most generous human being I had ever met," end quote, as tears streamed down his face. That's all I have for you today, guys. Please give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed the content, if you enjoyed spending this time with me. Spread the love by sharing this video. Subscribe if you haven't already, please, and hit the notification bell to turn all notifications on so you get notified of everything we do here on this channel. We being me, Laura, Ghost Dragon ZW, Ryan Paul Tremblay, our whole crew of gemstones here who just put together the live shows and bring you guys the content, because it's not just about me, it's about all of you and those guys too. Love you all tremendously, and thank you for your help. Thank you for subscribing and getting me to almost 5,000 subs so quickly. Like, since I got the 3,000, I've just been moving on up, and I absolutely love it. Please check out the description box for some important links. Ways to donate to the channel: PayPal, Cash App, my Amazon wish list gift link. You can become a patron, you can become a member. Any and all of those things are available to you with links in the description box, as well as on Amazon, all of my books in Kindle, paperback, or Audible format. If you want an autographed copy of any of my books, or for any other correspondence to send me in your own personal encounters with the supernatural, paranormal, extraterrestrial, otherworldly for me to use in listener encounters, or my book series Campfire Stories, which I am about to start working on Volume 3, Gone Mysterious Disappearances Volume 3 is coming as well. Please email me at GemmaJadeParanormal@gmail.com. That is also in the description box. The schedule for this channel, for all of the live streams, for the pre-recordeds, for anything else that we upload and do here, the schedule for the most part is in the description box as well, so you can know, maybe when your favorite live stream is coming on, or when the pre-recordeds like this video come out. Also, guys, support the shorts. I cannot stress enough how important you guys watching those shorts is to my channel, to my algorithm, to my money, to my career in general. It means the absolute world to me. If you do nothing else, please support the shorts. They're anywhere from like 2 to 4 seconds of your life up to no longer than 59 or 60 seconds of your life. It's free to do. It takes less than a minute, and it makes such a big difference. You guys, seriously, okay? Please go and do that. Be kind to each other, guys. It doesn't cost anything. Be kind to yourselves, and never accept anything less than others being kind to you. If nobody told you today, you are amazing. Abundance is your birthright, okay? You just got to work on your manifesting technique. And once you do that, and once you move yourself into a higher vibration, which is a more positive mindset, there will literally be nothing stopping you. I got your back, and I believe in you. Hit me up anytime at GemmaJadeParanormal@gmail.com. Always go in grace, smile at a stranger, and I'll see you guys next time.